Would it be too dramatic if I said that living without Instagram changed my life? Yeah. Okay, so this is going to be a long story, and I honestly don't know where to start from. But you guys need to know a few things about me. So, my name is Shrish. I am 20. I make videos on the internet, sometimes for myself, sometimes for others. And I have been socially awkward since the very beginning. As a kid, I never quite understood how to interact exactly in social situations. I never quite understood how to ask these questions that I have inside my head. I never quite understood how to express myself when I'm surrounded by people. For the most part, I used to feel nervous and anxious and uneasy. I remember every single interaction or conversation or situation where I had to be social. It used to exhaust me. All I can remember is me just running away from these situations, like me canceling birthday parties or not showing up at parties, canceling plans, ignoring my friends. Socializing was tough for me, yes. And on top of that, I have been a terrible, and I mean a terrible overthinker. So, if I recall correctly, it was 2010 when I created my account on Facebook, and Facebook wasn't formally letting a 10-year-old onto their platform back then. So, I had to use a fake date of birth. And my cousin actually had introduced me to Facebook, and when he was telling me about Facebook, when he was explaining me a few things, I was like, wait, so you're telling me that I can talk to people, what you call as chatting, I can talk to people without actually talking to people. It just seemed perfect for me, and I mean, I was happy something like that exists. And obviously I started using it, and I've started using it a lot, like a lot. I started posting pictures, I started texting random people on the internet, uh, and I used it for more than a few years. But then I got bored because there were two other things going on in my life at this point. First one, I had stepped into a college, and second one, I had been introduced to a tool known as Instagram. My college life was good, like it was something else. Like all of a sudden, I had this huge wave of attention coming my way. There were 147 folks around me, and my friend circle was increasing day by day. I was skipping lectures, I was going on road trips, I was hanging out with all sorts of people. Some other guy from some other class used to complete my notes and all that sort of stuff. It was fun. Like there were simply a lot of things happening in my life at this point. And like I was no longer that shy and awkward person anymore. Like I was very comfortable in my skin. I knew how to make friends, I knew how to make the other person comfortable. And I was liking every single bit of attention that I was getting during this period. Those were the 3 happiest years of my life. I mean, yeah, the submission period used to suck, and my college administration wasn't that great, but I loved it. I loved my college life. I mean, my life was so happening at this point that I never really felt the need to use something like Instagram or Facebook to be social. Like like my life was offline at this point. Okay, so that building behind me, that's where my classroom was, and I'm here after 2 years, I guess. So this is quite awkward and nostalgic. Awkward because people are just staring at me right now. But obviously, it did not last for too long. It was 2019 when I stepped out of my college, and now I had to focus on my work, which was to make videos. And everything changed, at this point. Like I could feel that I'm going back to being a shy and anxious and nervous person again. Like the thing at that point was like 6 months ago, my life was so incredibly happening. I was getting all the attention I could have ever asked for. And now everything was slowing down. There were not like 147 things happening all at once. Everything seemed stagnant, and it was getting frustratingly boring. And this is when I started using Instagram, like an actual Instagram.
All my worries, I prepare for something new. Whatever it was that held me back, I'm sure it wasn't true.
Like people who post stories or pictures of the places they visit, they put up stories of the food they eat and that sort of stuff. I was doing that. I was posting a couple of pictures every single month. I was putting up stories almost every single day. And I could see what my friends were doing at this point. I could DM them, I could text them, and we started hanging out virtually. To a certain degree, it was convenient. It was easy, because a lot of my friends had moved out, and some of them were in college, some of them were working. So Instagram was getting me out of the boredom. It was helping me reconnect with the fun world that I once was in. It sort of did remind me of my Facebook days back then, but this was different. Instagram was better, actually.
I read that in so many books, now it's almost understood. I'm moving on.
And it was around this time that my channel really started growing. In terms of numbers. I was making tech reviews and they were doing good. So, there were people who used to text me on Instagram or DM me on Instagram saying that, hey, I really appreciate your work. This is how you can improve your videos or stuff like that. And I was happy about it. I was really happy about how the channel was doing and the attention that I was getting for my work. I used to feel very validated, and it was healthy to a certain degree at that point. But then I could also see that the line was getting more and more blurred every single day. Every single like, every single comment, it used to make me feel like I am someone, except for the truth was that I wasn't. Even back then I had 700 followers maybe. So it wasn't like I was actually someone. But I don't know, maybe it's just the way Instagram works, but it makes you feel like you are someone really important.
And it's kind of a disease because social media is making celebrities of all of us, and celebrities are the most miserable people in the world.
And maybe it's good, I don't know about that, but it was sort of getting personal for me.
You were showing a lot of symptoms for depression at that point of time, right? So,
do you know when it started going downhill? It was during the pandemic. It was a slippery slope after that. When the pandemic broke out, the first few weeks were good. Maybe a couple of months were good actually. I was focusing on my work. I was trying to build connections through social media, with professionals who I can call my friends now. And it was going well, but then, all of a sudden I had a lot of time with my own thoughts. Instagram usage sort of started to skyrocket. 6, 7, 8 hours a day I used to find myself blankly scrolling. And this was also when I guess Instagram introduced Reels onto the platform, which just made the whole platform a lot more addictive than what it actually was. And this was also the phase where I was sort of discovering myself. I've always been an overthinker, and during the isolation I just had a lot of thoughts about myself, and I just kept on thinking, and I was becoming more and more aware of my flaws and insecurities. And instead of actually fixing these flaws and insecurities, I was fixing them on Instagram. I was putting up a lot of stories on Instagram, especially the stories which used to give me some sort of response, mostly it was a good response. A response that would make me feel validated about my photography skills or about myself if it's my own picture. I started posting my very own pictures, and this went on for a really long time.
And clearly things were not going okay. There were a lot of problems right over there.
I thought that it is a reality that favors me. Except for the thing was that Instagram wasn't favoring me. Instagram wasn't tailored for me. And I realized that when I went through the archived section of my Instagram, and there were more posts in my archive than on my feed.
It did not just begin right there and then in your life. There were a lot of things that had happened in your past.
Slowly and gradually I was becoming a very different person. So like there was an Instagram personality which was amazing, and then there was this shy, socially awkward, anxious, nervous personality full of flaws, which was the real me. I had also started building informal relationships and bonds on Instagram, like friendships. I had started making friends on Instagram, and while it's not really bad or unhealthy as such, but there came a point where it just got too real. And it wasn't particularly real, right? I mean, on text when you're talking to someone, it's like you don't really know if the person is laughing. You don't really know if the person has sent you an LOL, if the person is really laughing. So it's like I don't really think that texting is a full-fledged form of a conversation. You cannot really have difficult conversations on texts. You don't really know how the other person is feeling about it. You're not even sure if the person is being sarcastic. You cannot guess the tone. I mean, you can guess that, and that's what we do, a lot of times, but it's not accurate, and the whole mechanism of texting it's fucked up. I started having serious mental health issues. I mean, there were a lot of unprocessed things that I never really dealt with, and all of a sudden they were back to haunt me, and the whole thing just became very overwhelming for me. I stopped having my meals properly. I couldn't find pleasure in anything. I stopped making videos. I couldn't exercise. All I used to do back then was just lay in my bed, scrolling through Instagram, staring through walls, overthinking 12 hours a day. It was fucked up. And I was at a point where I had to seek professional help. So I started seeing a counselor. A counselor, her name is Vinitha, and she helped me tremendously during this phase. She works for Lost a Little Wellness, and she made the whole process of getting out of that mess a lot easier for me. Like where do you think does Instagram stand in this whole picture, or my whole situation back then?
So at that point of time, I did tell you that Lost a Little doesn't deal with diagnosis, and we won't label what you have, but we will talk about the symptoms of what you're struggling with. You were showing a lot of symptoms for depression at that point of time, right? So, which is already an indicator that you can't externally see it, but a lot of your mental energy is being consumed. You're running on very little fuel, okay? So in this given state of mind, if you try to add Instagram as a factor onto it, what you thought at that point of time might have been, you know what, I'm just going to take a small break. I'm just going to go on Instagram and scroll and, just relax.
Yeah.
But probably what you were doing was spending hours on Instagram, not knowing how the day was going by, constantly believing that you are doing something at that point, keeping busy. But at the end of the day, when you look back, you feel really bad because you weren't quote unquote productive. And then the kind of content you tend to consume in that state of mind can have an effect as well, because Instagram doesn't know what's good for you or bad for you. Right. It works on an algorithm. It's just a program, right? At the end of the day. So let's say you related to a content which kind of said, I don't know, people leave you and go and you'll always be left behind and this is what life is. And you liked a post like that, and Instagram's making a note of that, and it's going to send a lot more content related to that at you. And it's very easy in that state of mind to just wallow in that mood and stay in that loop, that this is what life is. This is what it's gonna be like. So in that sense, definitely all this takes up a lot of mental energy, right? So what you think is just scrolling on Instagram is not just scrolling on Instagram. It's actually sucking a lot more energy out of you.
Let's see if I've got this straight. I had pre-existing problems, and while Instagram did not particularly create these problems for me, it was sort of adding fuel to that fire. Can we say that?
Definitely. definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, so if for someone like me who is not in the right state of mind, or if for someone who, like has had a few issues in the real world, not particularly in the virtual world, but someone who has had a few difficulties, and given my past experiences, my past experience with Instagram hasn't particularly been that good, so, in your opinion, like in your eyes, you seeing all of this objectively, should I be using Instagram or not? So it's been 3 months since I deactivated my Instagram account, and honestly, it has been quite an experience. I mean, a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say is going to sound like super corny and super cliche, but you see, one of the things that I've been realizing in the last few months has been that life is fucking boring. I mean, at least mine is, because you see, not everyone is Casey Neistat. So yeah, for most of us, for most part, life is pretty mundane. It's pretty slow paced and it's pretty boring. But that doesn't really make it any less meaningful. I mean, more or less, the real deal, I guess, is about the tiny, seemingly insignificant moments that we so often fail to notice. Like going down the street and exchanging smiles with a few strangers, or just taking your dog out for a walk, or just spending time with your loved ones, or calling a friend that you haven't really talked to in a really long time. Things like these, they happen almost every day, but we so often fail to notice them. And drifting away from Instagram, for me at least, it has just made a lot of these things noticeable. And I've been starting to understand what validation really is, and what is it that I really value in my life. And the more I've been thinking about it, the more I've been realizing that it's not really about the 147 people around you, or the attention that you get, or even the words that you say, or the right words that you use in a conversation. It's more or less about being around a handful of people that you can call your fucking tribe or your family, or just being in a conversation or having a conversation where words are just merely words. What's really making you happy is the connect that you have with the other person. It's more about living your fucking life offline. And overall, when I think about this has been an incredibly humbling experience for me. But with all that said, I guess it's time for me to go back to using Instagram now.
Okay. That is not a straight yes or no answer. The way I see it is, at the end of the day, Instagram is a tool. Just like, let's take the example, a knife. A knife is a tool, right? So, it's a very useful tool. It can be a very useful tool. You can cut vegetables, you can cut things into sizable chunks. It's absolutely useful. But you can also use it to harm other people or harm yourself and cause a lot of violence, right? So at the end of the day, it's not whether Instagram is good for you or not. It's about how you use Instagram, whether it's good for you or not, or whether you're able to regulate it or not. At the end of the day, it is still a very useful thing. It helps us connect, especially in a pandemic situation. I don't know what life would be like without social media if you couldn't connect to people outside your physical region. I think we would all have been a lot more crazier if we didn't connect to people across the world. So it really helps us make new friends. We know what's going on around the world. We can learn new things. We can set up our business. You're a content creator. You need Instagram. It should be very useful to you. So I would definitely not say completely rid yourself off of it. Just regulate how you approach the app.
Also, before I end this, I have to thank a few people. Firstly, I'd like to thank Lost a Little Wellness. They've been super cooperative during this whole process. In case you're wondering, it is the same mental health startup or the company that helped me during that phase or that loop that I was stuck in. So they provide you with counseling services if you are looking for help, or if you just want a broader perspective, or if you're just trying to discover a few things about yourself. So I'll drop the link in the description box below. Be sure to check it out. Secondly, हमारे एक भैया हैं, Animesh, who has an amazing YouTube channel. So he has been helping me a lot, in this process of making better videos. I've been still learning a lot of things, and he has been playing a really, really big role in this whole process. So I can't thank him enough. And he has an incredible, quite literally an incredible, and I'm not even exaggerating. He has a really good channel, so you should check that out as well. I'll drop his links in the description box below. And lastly, I'd like to thank Vishwatej or Aperture. He's a friend of mine from Mumbai. So basically for this video, I needed a few extra shots. So he did provide me with those. So in some shots, it wasn't really me behind the camera or even in front of the camera. So it was him. He helped me out with that stuff. So huge shout out to him. He's a photographer. And funnily enough, I had met him through Instagram. Then I went on to meet him and work on a couple of more projects with him. But yeah, huge shout out to him. I'll drop his work in the description box below as well. And yeah, that's it. Catch you guys in the next one. Hope you guys liked it.